Yeah, yeah, it's the power hour where the bruises eat. No finesse, no flukes, just backs that punish. Fantasy gold in the mud, let's eat. Yo, welcome to the power hour.
We are back for another episode of the Fantasy Football Power Hour. Guys, we have football back. If you weren't here last year, Chris the Bulls was on last year. We broke down this Hall of Fame game slate. We had a great time, and we've been talking ever since, so we have him back on. So thank you, the Bulls, for coming on. What's going on, man?
Yeah, man, I appreciate you having me back. I mean, I thought we had a great time last year. Really broke the slate down well. Unfortunately, Mother Nature kind of got a little bit in our way with rain coming in the third quarter. But ready to get back at it this week. I'm super excited. As you can see, I'm a Chargers fan on top of, loving football and being aware of this. So I'm super excited tonight, and I'm sure you guys are as well.
Oh man, I'm really, really excited. I know, like I said before, a lot of people kind of poop on this game a little bit, but let me tell you, if you're doing it all wrong, guys, because here's the thing. Football is back. We're going to have football for how many months now? I'm so excited. I'm grateful for this and grateful for you guys. And as always, I have Muscles, the other host of this show, on. What's going on, Mus?
Not a whole lot. What's happening tonight?
Just ready for this game, and I'm really excited to kind of break this down. We got some new guys and some new places here, so it's going to be kind of exciting to see that as well. So let's just hop right into it. Let's go ahead. Let's get into the Lions here, Chris. So I want to break down a couple of these quarterbacks. I think it's safe to say we're not going to see Jared Goff. We're not going to see a lot of these starters. I mean, I know if you're not in a Discord, Chris wrote down some amazing articles. To be completely honest, they should be behind a paywall. This is stuff that I've paid for. So he's put in a ton of work. So I'm going to kind of give you the stage here, Chris, and kind of talk about some of these quarterbacks.
Awesome. I appreciate it, man. Absolutely. So, Lions will be having two quarterbacks tonight. Like you mentioned, Jared Goff will not be dressing. They only have three quarterbacks on their roster. So we'll see both Hendon Hooker and Kyle Allen. It broke today that it looks like Kyle Allen is actually going to get the start over Hendon Hooker, which is a bit of a surprise to a lot of people. But the lines have been pretty open all camp that they've been rotating back and forth. Today is just Kyle Allen's day with the twos and Hooker's with the three. Next week, they're planning on swapping those two. So I wouldn't read too much into it. I believe the plan will still be for both of them to receive a half. So the difference in the two quarterbacks obviously is pretty extreme, though. We'll start with Kyle Allen because he is the one starting. He's basically your prototypical kind of preseason quarterback. He's not going to get you much rushing yards. He's going to be fairly safe with the ball. He's got about an average arm. So I wouldn't expect any super deep plays, but he's going to be accurate. He's going to make good decisions. And I would expect him to kind of be able to move the chains, get it going, and be solid for the wide receivers. So that's going to be, important as we get into the wide receivers with the ones that'll be starting kind of in the first half with him. What you'll be looking for. Um, so I would say Allen doesn't quite have the upside that you'll get out of Hendon Hooker because he doesn't have that rushing ability. Hendon Hooker, on the other hand, was a superstar at Tennessee. He's a much popular name. People remember him. He was a third round draft pick just a couple years ago. Basically was on his way to a potential Heisman like season with the Volunteers, including a big win over Alabama, I believe. Then he tore his ACL. After that, basically caused his draft stock to fall, ended up with the Lions. He's fully recovered now, was solid in the preseason last year. He did get banged up a bit in one of the preseason games last year on a running play. And Dan Campbell this week has been very open about how he really wants Hooker to focus in on making the right decisions, let your wide receivers, your running backs, your tight ends make the plays, be safe, be sound. Uh, I'm a little hesitant on Hooker just a little bit because of that. So I think that kind of limits a little bit of his upside rushing if that's not the plan. That being said, he's an NFL quarterback. Game gets action, the bullets start flying. He sees an open lane. He's got that talent to take it 60, 70 yards to the house.
Yep. I 100% agree. Now, from a dynasty standpoint, I remember there there's a lot of concerns that like could Hendon Hooker take the job from Jared Goff. So like, of course that's not happening now, but like, hey, it's kind of like something that was there. So the guy does have a ton of talent. Had the unfortunate injury, like you said. I'm with you. If a lane's open, like you said, I like how you said that. Whenever the bullets are flying, this is what can happen. He's gonna take off. He's gonna try to make a play. That's what Hendon Hooker does. That's what a lot of these guys are gonna try to do. So, yeah, I think you broke that down perfect. Kyle Allen, just kind of a guy, but I mean, I know that's something you said in the Discord as well, Chris. That you know, is there a chance that would you be shocked if Kyle Allen comes out and he leads the slate? Like just
Yeah, I
because
mean,
he's a veteran.
Absolutely, and he's gonna be playing with the best wide receivers that Detroit's gonna be putting out there. He's gonna be playing with Isak Tesla. He's gonna be playing,
Yep.
probably with Tom Kennedy. He's gonna be playing with the other rookie, Dominic Levitt. So, I mean, he's gonna have the weapons around him. Not to mention Craig Reynolds, who's an NFL running back, is probably gonna be out there with him. So he's gonna have the chance. Like I think I put in the article, and if he ends up throwing 160 and 2 touchdowns and leads the slate, I mean, that's not gonna be a shock to really anybody,
Right.
and you're probably going to get him at a third of the ownership of Hendon Hooker. I mean, we'll
Yeah.
see how much him starting really changes that. I don't think it will be too much because I think people will still look at Hooker's rushing upside and want to go there instead.
And
Yeah,
Hooker's a sexy name.
exactly. That's what I was just about ready to say. I mean, Hooker's just a sexy name, so I feel like he's going to come in probably 2-3 times, like you said, the ownership. So I kind of like the Kyle Allen pivot.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm gonna play a little bit of Kyle Allen as well, just for the simple fact of ownership. And if he does play the first half, yeah, I like it, man. So let's get into these running backs. Now, this running back room's definitely really interesting here. So we'll kind of jump into that. And I'm kind of curious to see what you have to say.
Yeah, absolutely. I think right now, from looking at other sites, looking on YouTube, looking through Twitter, the Lions running back room, I think, is the biggest opportunity slash question marks that's out there on the slate right now. A lot of places are penciling Sion Vaki in to play and considering him basically a core play or a significant play. Um, I been listening to the Sports Illustrated beat writer for the Detroit Lions for a long time. He's really good at what he does. I was watching his live show this morning. He said emphatically, Vaki is not playing. He said he basically asked Dan Campbell himself, Vaki's not playing. And other people asked him questions about other things, and he was like, I'm not sure, but it was emphatic that Vaki's not playing. It's NFL, it's the world. Anything could happen. He suits up, it could happen. But all indications that I've read is that he's not going to be playing. The only people that seem to want to put him in is anyone that's doing anything with DFS or betting. So I'm going with the assumption that he's out. Um, Behind that, you have Kai Robichaux, who was their undrafted free agent rookie. He left practice 3 days ago after a big hit in one-on-one drills. Did not practice the day after that. Um, and pretty much immediately after he left practice, they went out and signed Jalen Sailors, um, which kind of indicates to me that that injury is significant enough that he's probably not going to play. I have not seen anything that confirms that he's not going to play, so there is still a chance that he could be in. But if both of those guys are out, that obviously leaves the room very, very thin.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. This is somebody you've been really watching and kind of like discussing in Discord. Like, hey, still watching here. I really hope these guys play because I think we get some lower ownership on even if one of the two plays. I think we get some lower ownership on these other guys.
Right, absolutely. I think when you're looking at the other two guys, and we'll talk about them specifically in a second with Jabari Small and Jalen Sailors, or not Jalen, sorry, Jacob Sailors. If one of those two banged up running backs do play, I think that just takes away from some of Craig Reynolds' touches. Because Craig Reynolds is somebody that's a core four special teamer. He's gonna make the team. He's absolutely locked into the Lions roster. Um, but if they only have two other running backs, he's probably going to play 2 to 3 series in this game just because they're not going to want to go the entire game with only two running backs. So to me, I think that the injury news doesn't really change much on the two guys we're going to talk about in a second that I absolutely love both of them.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm with you there. Like, see, Craig Reynolds is somebody I threw in a couple because I'm thinking, like, okay, does he play the first quarter? But this is like a Dan Campbell guy. Same with Valky. Like, they're just Dan Campbell guys. Bruiser. Like, Reynolds has always been a bruiser. He's kind of that David Montgomery when he went down. Like, just put him out in the field. So yeah, no, really, like, it's not. He's gonna make the team, like you said. He plays everywhere, so he might be somebody that maybe I fade a little bit because one of these guys we're gonna talk about here. I really like him. You really got me on him through Discord, and like I've been kind of going off on my own and reading some things here on X, and I really like him. So I'll let you talk about these last couple guys.
Yeah, absolutely. And then just another note on the Lions running backs is Dan Campbell, pretty much since he's taken over as head coach of the Lions, I mean, they're consistently one of the higher rushing percentage teams in the preseason. They usually go about 55-60% rushing, in the preseason, whereas a lot of teams might lean a little bit even positive into the passing. The Chargers, we'll talk about in a minute, they're more of a passing team in the preseason under Jim Harbaugh in the 1 year sample that we do have. But yeah, we'll talk about the two guys in a second. Um, we'll start with the lesser of the two that I like, and then we'll touch on Sailors, who I know you're excited to hear me talk about. But we'll go with Jabari Small, who's getting the bulk of the attention across the industry as the guy to play if the other two are out, because he's definitely worth mentioning. I mean, I think you're gonna see the way I kind of have it broken down is between the second, third, and fourth quarters. You're probably going to see these two guys about equally. Um, and Jabari Small, basically undrafted free agent last year with the Titans. He's a bruiser, kind of similar to you mentioned on the other two guys. Not a great pass catcher, so someone that's not really going to be looked at to catch a ton of passes out of the backfield. Um, Now, one thing about him is, yes, he was signed before Sailors, but he only joined the team less than 2 weeks ago. So it's not like he's been in camp the entire offseason. So he's still pretty new to the Lions as well. I think he's certainly somebody you're going to want to be overweight on just because he's going to get so much action. And with any of these running backs, you have the chance to catch a touchdown. You can get pass
Yep.
interference in the end zone. So I mean, you've seen, you go back and look at pass optimals, pass box scores. I mean, you might have somebody that comes in and it's 12 carries for 27 yards, but he's got a touchdown and 3 catches, and it
Yeah.
makes him an optimal play. So we don't, just because Jabari Small might not be the most skilled running back in the world, I think he's certainly somebody that you're going to want to get some exposure to, and you're probably going to want to be over the field, especially if the two guys we mentioned before are going to be out. Um, but now let's talk about Jacob Sailors. He's the one that's way more exciting, at least for me, because I think he's going to be unowned at all. I mean, you search his name on Twitter, you go through any of the other tout sites, you're not seeing anybody talking about this guy. He was just signed a couple days ago, August 20 or July 28th. We just saw this literally last year with Demetric Felton and the Chicago Bears. He was also signed on July 28th. Came out and had 3 catches, and I think he had like 4 or 5 carries. Halfway through the third quarter when that game got called, and all indications is he was going to be the primary back in the entire fourth quarter. So he was well on his way to getting over 10 touches despite being signed 2 days before. These teams run extremely vanilla offenses. Anyone that's been playing football their whole lives, like these guys have, can come in and pick up enough to play these games. And that being said, Sailors isn't just a nobody. I mean, he's obviously was on the streets for a reason, but he has played the last 2 years in the UFL. He was first team all UFL, their version of all pro, both seasons. 2025, he led the league in yards per game. Very talented running back, really good pass catcher. Showed really good pass catching ability in the UFL. There is a connection with the Lions, so not a surprise that they reached out to him. I mentioned in the article his running back coach with the Battlehawks in the UFL was a former running back coach with the Lions in 2019 and 2020. So they know what they're getting. They know that this guy's somebody they can come in and they can basically run into the ground, tonight, and then, see what happens after that. I mean, who knows? Maybe he has a great game, and the other guys continue to be injured, and he makes the roster, or is somebody they can stash on the practice squad. So even if news comes out that the other guys are out, I don't see his ownership crawling to much more than 10 to 15%. And for better or for worse, I mean, I could see myself playing 50% maybe tonight, just to really take a huge stand and hope that, if he hits, then I'm gonna hit and it's gonna be a great night.
Yeah, I got 5 lineups in, and he's in every single lineup. So right now I'm
Yeah.
sitting at 100%. I
Yeah.
I really
It
like this guy. I think he's gonna be real hungry here to try to make something. I mean, if you're doing that, I know it's a UFL, guys. Like I definitely get that, but like it's still not a nothing league. Like it shows you that he has some kind of like capability of being a running back. Like so I think he's gonna try to get out here. And then I really like going back. He's with the running backs coach. Like there's some familiarity there. And then pass catching, like especially in DraftKings, being in PPR, man. Like if he doesn't even get a touchdown, say he gets 40 yards, but he gets like 4 or 5 catches. I mean, that's a good chance that's optimal. So like I really like that about him as well. So I'm gonna be really overweight on him as well. So
yeah,
Muscle, do you
yeah.
have
I mean, I
anything to
think you
add
nailed
to
it.
this?
No, that's a good insight. I actually didn't know about that guy. So
Yeah, no, absolutely. And then the other thing, I mean, all these guys are in great shape, obviously, but I mean, the UFL season only ended, I think, middle of June. So this guy was
Mhm.
playing competitive football, at a very, high level. Obviously, the talent's not there, but as far as the effort and the energy and the shape that you have to be in, just a couple months ago, versus some of these other guys that haven't played a real football game, since January, maybe. I mean, go back to someone like Jabari Small. I mean, who knows when the last time he's played an actual real football game? Probably last preseason.
Yeah. Yeah, probably, honestly. So yeah, I really, really like that call. I think it's real sneaky. Let's go ahead. Let's get into some pass catchers here because gonna be quite a few pass catchers here. Some that we like, some that we're like, not real sure about. But let's go ahead. This is somebody I'm excited about. Probably not gonna play much, but Isaac Tesla. So I want to kind of hear your thoughts on him.
Yeah, absolutely. So he's obviously the hot name for Detroit. Whether it's dynasty, even, maybe not redraft just yet, but certainly even best ball. The Lions traded up to get him in the third round. I think that's really important for us tonight. I'm actually honestly really surprised he's playing. And I'd be pretty surprised if he plays more than a series, just because the Lions, under Dan Campbell, have been pretty protective of their players. I mean, he's pretty much come out and said anyone else that has a pulse that is planning on being relevant to the team is not playing tonight. And so, I mean, even the other two rookies, you look at, on the what's it, Talik Williams on the defensive line, and then Tate Ratledge, the offensive lineman. Neither one of those two guys are playing. He already said those guys are sitting out. So the fact that Tesla is playing, I think, is a little surprising. I think where you're going to want to get your exposure to Tesla from a DFS standpoint is actually going to be in the captain spot. I think if he goes off, he's going to go off because he catches a big touchdown, or he has like 3 catches for and gets a touchdown. Like I said, I only see him play in one drive. I mean, maybe two at the most. And obviously this will be with Kyle Allen. And so if he goes out in 2 drives and gets 3 catches for 30 yards, that's probably not going to be enough for a tournament. It's
Right.
just not. So if you're playing him and you're gonna try to play him, and this kind of the same thing will go for Trey Harris once we get to the other side, is if you're playing him to make that big play. So if you're
Yeah.
going for that big play and you're hoping to get you 50 yards in a touchdown or 60 yards in a touchdown, throw him in the captain spot,
Yeah.
because there's a good chance he's going to be one of the top scorers.
So Te yeah,
Go ahead.
Tesla for me, like, he was at Arkansas, so there was Andrew Armstrong and Isaac Tesla, and Armstrong put up big numbers, but film-wise, I was pretty high on Tesla. I did not think he would go as high as he went. Like, I mean, that's something I'll say is, like, I did not think he went, what, 3rd round? I believe it was a 3rd round pick.
Yeah, they traded up in the third round to get him.
Yeah, so, like, that was definitely really surprising, but he's a bigger slot, and he just kind of he's been ever since the Senior Bowl, like, he really performed well at the Senior Bowl, then goes, does a combine, performs well there, so it's just, like, the hype, the hype, the hype, and it's just, like, when and if it dies down, right? Like, he's been just performing every time, so he goes into the first game of the preseason here. Could he continue this streak?
Yeah, and I will say just kind of another thing to kind of pour cold blanket over Tesla again. And this is just for tonight, not for dynasty or anything like that. Is he's been running routinely with the twos and the threes in
Mhm.
camp, going against twos and threes on defense, and he's made some great plays in camp that highlight plays that everyone's seeing. And from listening to a couple different podcasts, reading some things from beat writers, you know a lot of that is because he's not getting a ton of separation. And
Yeah,
so if he's not getting, separation against, the twos and the threes, now of course you're not going to see the starters out there for the Chargers, but there's a chance. I mean, the Chargers do have a couple guys that are competing for spots, like Cam Hart, for example. My
yeah,
guess is you'll see Cam Hart probably playing against them because Cam Hart was not on the list that Harbaugh gave of veterans that aren't playing tonight. So my guess is
right,
you might see Cam Hart line up against them, or
right,
somebody like that. So is he going to be able to get separation? Is my
right.
concern. And if he's going to come in at, even if it's 20, 25%, to me, I'm going to be way underweight on
Good.
that. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? I
yeah,
just because of the hype he's getting. I mean,
yep.
I love him. Like I said, I love him for Dynasty. I love him for the Lions in general. I just don't know if this is going to be the spot for him tonight. And again, you want to, tougher for people like you that are playing five lineups
I,
or one lineups. If you're an MME
I,
player like I am, like, I mean, between FanDuel and DraftKings, I'm playing a couple hundred lineups tonight. I can throw, 3% into the captain spot, you know, and then
mhm.
and they have
Yeah,
that covered that if he goes off and he gets a 60-yard touchdown, or that first drive is 3 for 30 and a touchdown or something like that, at least I have some outs, and I'm
right,
not getting crushed by a chalkier version of Tesla. So
right. I like it. Yeah, I mean, I have to agree with you with it. Like, I have to listen to what you're saying. I got to put Dynasty to the side here as much as I want to play him because I'm excited. I got to do what's best for my wallet. So yeah, I'm gonna be underweight if that's where we're going. And I definitely like I like how you're saying that too. Like, you got somebody that's, a little bit seasoned veteran that's competing for a spot going against a rookie that hasn't been able to separate. Makes a lot of sense.
It does.
Makes
Does.
a lot of sense. So let's get into a couple more guys here.
hmm.
Another rookie, Dominic Levette. So I'm kind of curious what you have to say about him.
Yeah, no, he's kind of like a little bit of the opposite of Tesla. Now, he obviously, because he is a rookie and he's somebody that people have heard of, he is getting a little bit of attention. But to me, because he was a later pick, I think he late seventh round pick, I believe, for them, and he's competing for a roster spot. I know they're planning on letting him do some special team stuff tonight, so we'll see how much that affects his playing time on the field when it comes to on offense. But I think we should see at least, I mean, 4 or 5 drives at minimum for him tonight playing in the slot.
Yeah.
I think there's a good chance that there's a couple guys that I think we could see some carryover where he plays, maybe he might play a little bit with Kyle Allen in the beginning, and then he also comes back out in the third quarter and plays with Hendon Hooker. Because I've been kind of going back on this um, idea since they announced Allen as a starter, that I don't think they're just going to leave Hendon Hooker out there with completely nothing on offense. So I could see, Dominic Levitt and someone like Tom Kennedy, who we'll mention in a minute, uh, kind of coming out and maybe playing a drive or two with Hendon Hooker just to give him some talented wide receivers to be able to throw the ball to. And Lovett's more of a, I see him being like a low dot type player, which is good for us in DFS for preseason. He's more likely to rack up 4 or 5 catches. I'm not sure if he'll get that big touchdown that you could see out of Tesla or some of these other wide receivers. But that doesn't mean catch a 7-yard touchdown in the end zone is just as good here. When it comes to being optimal or being in the winning lineup, because I use the term optimal a lot, but there's in preseason DFS when there's so many different players. Unlike regular season DFS, you're probably not going to need the optimal lineup to win, because there's a good chance somebody in the optimal lineup is like 2% owned just because
Right.
there's so many plays.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. He was a Georgia guy, I believe, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we scouted him a little bit. Well, he went where he went, but like this is a time for them to shine. Maybe try to get a drive together, and like you said, the low A dot stuff, keep the chains moving. So yeah, I like that a lot. Let's go ahead. We'll talk about a couple guys here: Malik Taylor, Ronnie Bell, and then a guy that you've been mentioning quite a bit, Tom Kennedy. So I'm curious of your thoughts on these guys.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll start right there at the end with Tom Kennedy. He's a name that we've heard in preseason DFS for the last few years. He's kind of one of those preseason DFS darlings that you see, across a couple different sports, where he just kind of comes out, is that solid veteran, performs. As soon as the regular season shows up, he hides away on a practice squad, never to be heard from again until the preseason comes back up. That being said, I mean, there's a lot of young players in this wide receiver room for Detroit. And so he brings that veteran experience that I could see, whether he's playing with Kyle Allen or whether he's out there with Hendon Hooker, as being a reliable guy, someone that's going to be able to get that separation that we talked about a little bit with Tesla. Like if, you see a lot of vanilla defense as well in the preseason, he's a guy that can find that soft spot in the zone. So, I mean, you tell me he gets 5, 6 catches, would not surprise me at all. He just is that solid guy that kind of gets that stuff done. You're probably gonna want him to get a touchdown because I don't see him putting up a ton of yards. But he certainly can do that. And I would say there's another guy I kind of like really deep for the Lions at wide receiver, but of the guys that's kind of well known, he's my favorite wide receiver. There's no probably. He is my favorite wide receiver of the bunch.
Awesome. Awesome. Do you want to talk a little bit? Ronnie Bell, we kind of know he
Yeah.
is. He was with San Fran, but
Yeah, I think Ronnie Bell and Malik Taylor, they're kind of both in the same kind of category. I mean, they've been around for a few years now. Um, they're probably going to play somewhere in the second quarter, third quarter, maybe into the fourth quarter. You never really know kind of with some of these guys. They're all pretty much the same. When you get a lot of those guys, they do have the experience, especially Ronnie Bell. We've seen him pop and have some success in the past. He's certainly somebody that has some talent. He's just never really been able to kind of push it over the top, um, so to speak, with them. But that being said, like I mentioned, we'll talk about it here in a little bit. The Chargers have a much deeper wide receiver room. There's going to be targets out to have. I know we mentioned that Detroit doesn't like to throw the ball a ton, but if you're assuming that Tesla only plays a series, you know, you're really only looking at what, one, two, three, four, five, 6 guys
yeah,
left for the rest of the game. When you get to somebody like Jacoby Kinney James, I don't really see him playing a ton kind of towards the end of the game. So you're really looking at 3 or 4 guys that are going to eat up a bulk of that playing time in the middle, in that second, third quarter, where you could see a lot of the DFS goodness come from.
right. Right. Now, you said about a couple other guys here, so I think I know who one of them is, and that's Meeks, right? Jackson
Yep,
Meeks.
Jackson Meeks. Yeah, he played last year at Syracuse with Kyle McCord. One of the main reasons, we'll talk about Rondé Gatson was also on that team, who's on the
Mhm.
other side in this game. One of the reasons Syracuse, who was projected, I think they were picked like 12th or 14th preseason in the ACC and went on to win 10 games, is because they had one of the best offenses in football. And Jackson Meeks was a huge part of that. Had over 1,000 yards. I want to say he had like eight touchdowns. Very physical wide receiver. Doesn't get a ton of separation, but is great at high pointing the ball, great at really kind of boxing out, the defenders and making that catch. And another guy too that, will really be able to take advantage of his own defense. If the
Yeah.
Chargers sit back in that second half, and just go into a zone defense with, third, fourth string players, I see him getting into those holes, and Hendon Hooker is gonna throw it, and especially if Dan Campbell's telling him, hey, look, stay in the pocket, make the safe play, make the right read. That's what he wants to see. That's what he wants to see. You know, Jackson Meeks is someone that I think is gonna be his number one, could be his number one target in the second half.
And that would be great. And I love that deep ball kind of stuff because that's what can win you these slates. Like if he were to go deep and just get a long touchdown for us, I mean, instantly you
Yeah,
got the fire
absolutely.
symbol. And we all love to see the fire symbol. So
Mhm.
yeah,
Yeah,
I
no,
think that's a real
absolutely.
nice play. I like that. I have him in a couple of my 5 lineups right now. And
Yeah.
honestly, just because you saying it, because this is a player, this is how much that you have to dig, guys, because like Muscles and I, we watch film. We watched probably like 60 some prospects, and some of these guys didn't make the list. So it's nice whenever you have somebody that goes out and then like, you kind of make attention to it, right? Like, and then you're putting in the Discord some of these highlights, and we're like, oh damn, pretty nice play.
Yeah, it's a nice feeling, when you go to like some of these, I'll
Yeah.
throw them out there just to start, not trying to throw shade, but like you go to the Roto Grinders Discord and you'll see the gifs pop up during the game with the who and the guy's looking dumbfounded and you're like, yeah, I talked about him. I know that guy.
Yeah, yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah. So I'll
We'll,
just hit one more name real quick if I can with the Lions before we,
yeah.
we swap over. And that is Jacoby Keeney James. He is the ultimate dart throw, not somebody I would recommend in 5 lineups, but you mentioned the deep ball. He's extremely athletic. He played 6 years in college. He's an undrafted free agent. Didn't play big ball college, but he's kind of one of those fast guys that if he can get behind the defense, especially, I wasn't really interested in him until I found with Kyle Allen. But now that I know that Hendon Hooker is going to be playing in the second half, Hendon
Mhm.
Hooker has a much stronger arm than Kyle Allen has, which I think if he's, obviously Jackson Meeks has the ability to go deep as well. And that's one of the reasons I really like him. But, Jay, Keeney James is the guy that, like, if he's going to go back there and throw the ball 70 yards in the air and connect with someone down the field, it's probably going to be him. He's
Yeah.
that type of player. That's what you're going to need because he's probably not going to get you 3, 4 catches. That's not his game.
Right.
But I mean, again, like I said, if anyone's playing a lot of lineups, and you want to throw him into a couple lineups, definitely, I think he's worth a shot because he's going to be another guy that comes in 1% owned, 2% owned, something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that call, and I like how, like, we have to tell ourselves a story, right? Like, we have to make things make sense. If Hendon Hooker has the arm to get it down the field, and we all know that. We've seen it at Tennessee. Uh, we got to kind of put 2 and 2 together. We kind of know what Kyle Allen is. He's kind of a dink and dunk guy. He don't have the strongest arm, get it down the field. So, like, I really like how you're saying that. We got to tell ourselves a story, and it's got to make sense. So, just got to see if it all comes to fruition.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's go ahead. We'll throw in these tight ends real quick here as well. Some
Oh,
other pass catchers for Detroit. So let's talk a little
yeah.
bit about them.
Yeah, absolutely. So Shane Zystro will be the one that may garner some interest. I'm not very big on tight ends in showdown just because they typically have such a minimalized role on an offense. That being said, in the preseason, you have, in a game like this, scoring's supposed to be low. One of these guys catches a 5-yard touchdown, you might want to have him in your lineup. So Zystrel's the one guy that can make some catches. He's a former college wide receiver. He's got, some ability, mostly plays on special teams with the Lions, and is expected to make the roster, which is why I'm a little worried about his playing time. That being said, they do have a pretty small room. Um, but he's somebody that, if you want to pair with Kyle Allen and hope that he catches that touchdown and maybe goes 3 for 20 with a touchdown or something like that, he could certainly sneak in there. You got Kenny Yeboah there, who's a big athletic tight end, but they don't use him as a pass catcher hardly at all. So I expect him pretty much just to be in there and blocking. The other interesting name is Zach Horton. He's not somebody that I was really in on from a DFS standpoint. I mean, he's hard nosed, tough, rugged, big bully guy. There's actually some talk that he might make the team as a fullback, which the
Ooh.
Lions haven't really used a fullback in the last few years. But just some of their beat writers, some of their bloggers just really really love the guy. Um, you know, I don't think I see it happening, but one of the shows I watched this morning, the guy predicted that Horton finds the end zone tonight. I think that's a little wild, but if they're talking about him, that means he's shown something.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I'll play him. It'll probably be more of like it'll be cool to see because I think it'd be a cool story. But just another name to throw out there. Also, if anyone's on some of these sites, Luke Deal is in the DraftKings player pool. He was waived when they signed Sailors, so he's not on the team anymore. So he's not gonna play tonight. So make sure you're not playing him.
Okay, that's good to know too. And this is why I'm glad. So we were gonna do this Wednesday, and then like some things happened. I'm really glad we're doing it now because we're kind of getting some final words here before a couple hours before the game. So it kind of makes it easier. We know at DFS, Mus and I used to do a little DFS show, but like it's really hard because whenever they play Sunday and Friday, we're getting some injury reports, and all these people are questionable, and you're not going to find out till like 10 o'clock on Sunday. You're like, well, that completely changes everything. So, and that's on the defensive side of the ball as well, because if top corner's out or he was questionable, like, okay, we might want to target this guy. So, really glad we're doing this tonight as well. And then I know we kind of mentioned kickers, like kickers, we don't love to throw in big time tournaments to be optimal, kind of probably more of a cash game play.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, both of these teams only have one kicker. So that's something that, you go to any projection site, whether it's, Roto Grinders, ETR, any of those other sites, kickers are going to be Jake Bates and Cameron Dicker are going to be two of the top 4 or 5 highest projected players on the slate just because they have the safest floor. And because of the low total, people just assume that means more field goals. Although we've seen over and over and over again, just because it's a low total doesn't mean that teams are only kicking field goals. It just means they're not scoring. So I
Right.
think, you look at, I think I mentioned in the Discord or maybe somewhere else that, you know, most of the time in these games, your kicker is going to get between 4 and 7 points.
Yeah.
It's a very high likelihood you're going to finish in that range, which is great for cash. I mean, you tell me right now, Jake Bates gets me 5 points right now. I'm taking it for cash all day long.
Yeah.
Because
Oh, absolutely.
I'm taking that. But that being said, 5 points is probably not going to be in the winning GPP lineup.
Yep.
And so you have. I mean, I haven't looked at the latest weather forecast. There, was chance of possibly some rain. I don't know how much that'll affect it. But that's the other thing too. When you look at the kickers on the slate, the uh, the field conditions in this field have not always been the best.
Yeah.
And you look at someone like Cameron Dicker from the Chargers. I mean, he's arguably the best kicker in the NFL. I mean, he's one field goal attempt away. Even if he misses it, he'll be the highest, most accurate kicker in NFL history. Once he hits eligible off of one field goal. So,
Yeah.
if there's any kind of question on the field conditions, Harbaugh's not going to run, one of the best kickers in the game out there to kick, 4 or 5 field goals. It just
Yeah.
doesn't make sense.
No.
So now, that being said, he is also one of the best kickers in the game. So if he goes out and kicks 3 50-yard field goals, it wouldn't shock me.
Right.
He's definitely capable of it. So, and if that happens, you're probably going to want him in captain, much less, on your roster.
Yeah.
So to me, it's really just a game theory thing. I mean, I will definitely have some exposure to both of them, but if they're going to come in 25-30% owned, maybe more, I'll
Yeah.
be fine to cap that at like 15,
Yeah.
maybe at the most, just because I think there's as many outs to them not getting there as there are for them to get there.
Which, and I think that kind of brings it back to me, and maybe you can answer this as well. And I want your opinion too, Mus. Like, they kind of know what they have, like Jake Bates, Cameron Dick, of course Cameron Dicker, but like there's nobody else that's really competing. They don't have anybody that's trying to compete for this kicker job. So does it really matter if they win or lose this game? They kind of want to see what they have, right? Like they want to see if guys can step up and make plays or and that's if it's throwing a ball, running a ball, it's from the offensive line, are they getting their protections, or the receivers running the right routes? Like how's the quarterback reading everything? So like does that make these guys a little bit more inclined to maybe go for like 4th and 5, 4th and 4, like anything under 5 yards?
Yeah, I would think so because I mean the game's meaningless. I mean, in a sense, other than seeing what you got. I mean,
Yeah.
what's 3 points tonight?
Yeah, that's what I was kind of thinking. Like I think it would be different too if you had somebody competing for the job. And I say this more on the Charger side. I feel like, so I kind of curious about your opinion there, the Bulls.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. I think, like you said, with it, there not being any competition. I know Bates has struggled a little bit in camp, so if he gets a
Mhm.
chance to have some short ones, I could see them maybe wanting to give him some confidence. Um, but both of these coaches are, I mean, these are two of the best 4 or 5 coaches in the entire NFL. They're smart. They're not gonna. They're everything that every decision they make is well thought out. So if they see a situation where it's 4th and 3, and they want to practice a specific play for 4th and 3 because they might need it week 15, they're gonna take that advantage. Whether it's Justin Herbert at quarterback or it's DJ Ukulele. Sorry, I don't know how to pronounce his last name, but that'll be the last time I try. It'll just be DJ the rest of the time. But they want to see, they want to, put that rep on film, because that's what's going to happen is you run that 4th and 3 play, no matter what the outcome is, that rep is now on film. So now they can go back in and they can go into, the practice rooms and say, all right, here is what we did and this is what we need to do.
Yep. And I think that's important. We gotta remember, like, this isn't Madden, right? This isn't 2K. Like, this is real life. Like, these guys literally have to go back into the film room, like you said, and diagnose and try to see how they can fix, or what was perfection, what they need to change, and everything like that as well. So, and for me as well, I'm a little bit curious on the Lions side. No Ben Johnson, he's out of town. So, like, what's this offense going to look like, especially week 1, but like even the first game of the year, are they going to be prepared for life without Ben Johnson? So something to keep in the
Yes.
back of our minds. I think we touched everything on the Lions end. Do we have anything else we really want to touch on? We want to head over to the Chargers side.
Do you wanna hit their defense now, or we can just knock out both defenses at the end?
Yeah, let's knock both out at the end, because I'm kind of curious in your thoughts with them as well, like optimal wise and everything like that as well, and if there's any key injuries or anything we need to be watching for. So we'll just
Okay,
shove them
perfect.
at the end together. Let's jump into the Charger side. If you can see the Bulls here, he has a Chargers shirt on. He's a Chargers guy. So I'm really excited to hear some of your thoughts here. And we have like guys like Trey Lance, who really
Yeah,
disappointed us. We might have drafted him really high in our dynasty leagues, and now
yeah.
we're fighting for a roster spot with the Chargers. So kind of curious. Let's just jump into these quarterbacks here.
Yeah, for sure. So
Uh-oh, I think we lost the Bulls here.
Yeah, we
But
did.
yeah, he'll probably be coming back on. He had some phone call problems before when somebody called. It kind of got him off line there. But I kind of want to ask you, Mus, like with Trey Lance, this is somebody that we can talk about because he's somebody that we do know, like this rushing upside and everything as well. Here we have the Bulls
sorry about
back.
that,
There
guys.
we go.
Sorry about that, guys.
No, you're good, man. I
Uh,
told him, I said, he probably got a phone call. You're a popular man. So,
yeah, exactly. So hopefully that'll be it's fine. The guy that called me just took me out for lobsters last night, so I can't. Hopefully he'll be fine with me calling him back. So it's fine. Um, but no, yeah. So yeah, as you mentioned, being a diehard Chargers fan for pretty much my entire life, trying to keep my biases aside in this game, but at the same point, a lot of these guys I've really been following closely from the draft on. Even the undrafted free agents, free, all that stuff, and then not to mention, you guys probably can't see it. One of the helmets back here is a Naheem Hines Colts helmet in the back as well. So he's another guy that is one of my personal favorites. So trying not to let that in and and get into my way. But yeah, let's get into these quarterbacks. Obviously, the guy everybody wants to talk about, best play on the slate, will probably be the highest owned play on the slate, is Trey Lance. Jim Harbaugh came out this week and with surprising clarity, pretty much told us the entire game plan for the quarterbacks. That's with Trey Lance starting. The plan is for him to play the entire first half, play the first drive into the third quarter, followed by DJ you taking over the rest of the way. But kind of having that clarity that Lance is expected to at least get, you know, 2 quarters and then the extra drive gives him the safest floor, quotation marks, of the quarterbacks, because Lance is also going to run the ball quite a bit, I imagine. The Chargers have put in um, packages for Lance. Whether it's Daniel Popper, the Athletic, other beat writers, bloggers, that have been at camp, they've talked about these special packages that the Chargers have put together for Lance that are running plays. When he comes into the offense, they run read option. So I'm fully expecting to see, I mean, maybe not a ton, but at least 3, 4 designed runs for Lance in this game. But he's got to stay healthy. Obviously, there is that risk with him is, he could run read option on the first play of the game, get lit up, and next thing you know, DJ's playing the entire game.
Mhm.
It's certainly out there. I say that in the sense of, for someone like myself who's playing 200 lineups, I'm not going to go 100% lock button on Lance. It might be 85%, but I'm not going to go. I'm going to
Right.
give myself that out. And I will say in lineups that don't have Trey Lance, I'll probably have DJ in most of those.
Okay.
Just because, again, I think if Lance, pretty much, I mean, if Lance isn't optimal, it's probably because he left the game earlier than we are expecting. I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
if he gets the playing time that they say he's going to get, there's a good chance, even if it's just with his rushing floor. And again, I use the term optimal. It's more about the winning lineup because he's going to be so high owned. I mean, he's going to clear 50% easily. I would assume he's going to be the highest owned captain as well. I could see him 25-30% owned in captain. Um, you know, that's where I will personally get different with Trey Lance, is I will probably limit my captain exposure to him to probably about 10%,
Okay.
which I assume will be less than half. Um, just because if he gets down there, even if he has 30-40 yards rushing, which I think is about the number that you're probably looking for him as a ceiling outside of breaking a long run, is 30-40 yards rushing, throws for 100 yards. If he does not get that touchdown, you know, that's only 8 points. 40 yards rushing and 100 yards passing is only 8 points.
Yep.
Going to be someone you want in flex, but probably not going to. It's not going to be who you want in that captain spot. Um, you know, whereas you could. I mean, and that's where you can get super creative with lineups with Trey Lance in them. I mean, you could play a lineup. We'll talk about the other players in a second, but you could play both Trey Lance and DJ with one of the second half receivers, with the second half receiver in the captain spot. And next thing you know, you're looking great. And because
That's a good
both
idea.
both DJ and that wide receiver both outscored Trey Lance, but Trey Lance is still got you 8-9 points, which you're going to want in that flex position.
Right.
So while normally you wouldn't want to play two quarterbacks from the same team in the same lineup, I think especially when you have, some of these wide receivers who we could see play with both quarterbacks.
Yeah.
So you get one of those guys in that say he catches 2 passes from Trey Lance, catches 4 passes from DJ. Wide receivers optimal. DJ throws the touchdown pass. Lance throws, rushes for 40 yards. They all get there. So
Yeah.
I think that's pretty much where I'm going with Trey Lance. I don't think there's really a bad way to play him. I think if you want to go underweight overall and just say, hey, I'm just hoping that Trey Lance is awful, and which is certainly possible.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
he only scores 3-4 points because he turns the ball over. I mean, last year the Cowboys played the Chargers in the preseason, and I watched Trey Lance turn the ball over 5 times
Yep.
in that game. So I mean, he's certainly capable of dropping an egg. Which on that same exact note, playing Trey Lance with the Detroit defense is 100% play as well.
Yeah.
I know we'll talk about defense later, but Trey Lance could put up big offensive numbers and turn the ball over 3 times and a half. He's
Yep.
certainly capable of that. Um, I will say another reason I'm a little hesitant on Trey Lance, and if you're in the fade Trey Lance market, this might be a little more fuel for you. The Chargers are going to be starting Zion Johnson at center. Zion Johnson, as many know, former first round pick, has played guard his entire career, has played guard his entire college career and his entire high school career. Unless he did it in middle school, tonight will be the first time Zion Johnson has ever played the center position in an actual real football game.
Wow.
So it'll be first live bullets for him playing center. He's expected to get 2 series. So Lance will obviously be in there after he's out. But those first couple series could be disasters.
Yeah.
It's something I'm seeing absolutely nobody talking about from a DFS perspective, whether it's with Amari Hampton, Trey Harris, any of these guys are going to be playing at the beginning. I mean, Zion Johnson's been practicing there all offseason, so he's gotten reps, but it's not been with live bullets, not with people that are trying to take his head off.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's something like I don't know the ownership, but I'm sure, Hampton and them aren't going to play much. I'm surprised Hampton's even suiting up, to be completely
Yeah,
honest. I mean,
yeah, we'll talk about him in a minute. That's crazy.
but yeah, I thought that was kind of crazy. Talking about, I think it's pronounced DJ Ugalande. I don't know. We'll just call him DJ, like you said. But like,
Yeah,
So I think I remember this guy. I don't know if you've ever watched. There was a quarterback show on Netflix. I'm pretty sure it was behind Spencer Rattler back in high school. I could be wrong. If anybody's listening that does know that, please comment. Let me
Yeah.
know if I'm right or I'm wrong. But I thought I've seen him on Netflix before, and then he's kind of disaster at Clemson. Just just never really had a good career in college.
Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't surprise me. He was a guy, 5-star quarterback, out of high
Hmm.
school. You know, Clemson had a okay first year, and then it kind of all started falling apart.
Yeah,
After the beginning. Went to Oregon State, that was a disaster. Went to Florida State, that was even worse.
yeah,
I mean, I don't even know what to say about that Florida State year last year. I was just
yeah,
they were projected to pick first in the ACC and finish dead last. So that was a
yeah.
really bad year. But he has, I mean, again, he's former 5-star quarterback for a reason. He has a huge arm.
Hmm.
And that's what I'm most interested in is the fact that the guy can get the ball down the field. He's going to be, playing with, with bottom of the roster players, but going against bottom of the roster players, vanilla defense. Um, and like I mentioned earlier, the Chargers, at least under Jim Harbaugh, have thrown the ball more than they've run the ball in the preseason. So DJ is actually someone I'm quite a bit interested in from a DFS perspective. Um, I don't think so much as captain because I think if he gets there, it's because he throws a touchdown or two, and I'd rather have the receiver on that end. I mean, I might have a couple captain lineups with him, but I think you're going to want him in flex to try to, very low owned to pair him with a low owned wide receiver and captain. I think that's a great way to really get different. And again, like I mentioned, you could play him with Lance. Um, but I like him quite a bit more than I like Kyle Allen. I like him closer to Hendon Hooker. I probably still like Hendon Hooker just a little bit more, but I think he's someone that's going to go under owned because people are just mentally associating horrible college player with horrible DFS player tonight, and that's not always the case.
Right. It could be structure, things could click for him. Like you said, he was a 5-star, man. Like he's had
Yeah.
talent. It's not like he's a nobody. Like whenever we're excited about a guy that played at, a level below the NFL, I mean, we got to be excited for a guy that was a 5-star recruit that does have a strong arm that just never put it together in college, but goes to a situation here with I'd say a Hall of Fame head coach, right? I mean,
Yeah.
and can end up getting a little bit of structure. And this is something that's really important for the NFL, right? Like these guys, these quarterbacks get hurt. They need to assess and figure out who they can put in this backup spot. If Justin Herbert were to miss, say, 6 games, somebody that can have a chance to win them 3, right? Like
Right.
this is something in the NFL that's underdone. Like we've seen this with the Jets, they just didn't want to bring anybody in. Zach Wilson was bad, so they're going to these different guys. We've seen it in Pittsburgh before as Steelers fans. I mean, we even seen it in LA behind Justin Herbert, where I can't even think of the name. Easton Stick, is that who was there?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Easton
like
Stick. I
come on,
I,
man. Like
I
we
think
need to
think we
try
we
to.
call them Easton Suck. I think is what we called them over in Chargers land. So,
I think the
but I
Dolphins
mean,
were worse. Like behind Tua, they have
Yeah.
nobody.
Well, I
if
mean,
if
Huntley just didn't fit
yeah,
that system, and like I didn't mind Huntley, but like his place was Baltimore. If Lamar missed time, Huntley was great at Baltimore. He just didn't fit the system, and kind of a bad job of the coaching staff there to not change the system. I mean, if you can really change the system because you're telling your linemen to do something different, your running backs, your receivers, but it was just a weird signing to begin with. So
yeah. And
something else.
just one final note on DJ. If you're one that likes the camp reports, um, they've been super positive on him. Multiple people that have been out at camp have said talent wise, he's been the second best quarterback in camp ahead of both Lance and um uh can't do the other guy's
Heineke?
name right now.
Heineke?
Heineke, yeah,
Yeah,
Heineke. Yeah,
yeah.
both Lance and Heineke. So I mean, he's had a good camp and he's been someone that's impressed them. So I definitely think they're going to give him plenty of opportunities to throw the ball.
And if you're telling me that I have to fade freaking Trey Lance at 50% ownership,
Yeah.
like, come on, man. Like, I'm not
Uh,
fading CD Lamb. Like, I'm not fading like
yeah,
a
exactly.
superstar. Like, I'm fading Trey Lance. Like,
Trey Lance. Yeah.
like I think that's a
Yeah.
perfectly good fade. And I have some Trey Lance in my lineups, but I think I am gonna try to make it more of a 50-50 bounce here and throw some DJ in there as well, just for the simple fact that, like, if his ownership's that high, I'll take the chance.
Yeah, and once I get into building lineups, I may end up closer to where you're at as well.
Yeah, it's how do you feel about all that, Moss? Like, are you fine on the fade Trey Lance?
Yeah,
The fade
to
Trey
be, to
Lance
be
train?
honest, I didn't even know Trey Lance was a Charger before it was announced.
Oh, damn.
I lost all track of Trey Lance. Like you
Yeah.
said, Trey Lance. Like,
Yeah, it's been a disappointing career so far. I,
Yeah.
I do hope, I really do hope the best for Trey Lance. So I hope he finds a home, and maybe it is in LA. Maybe he comes out here and does a good job. I mean, it just hasn't been good for him. So let's go ahead. Let's hop into some running backs here. Of course, I mentioned first round pick, Amarian Hampton, who is a complete bruiser. We really like the film coming out of North Carolina. Does remind me a little bit of Javonte Williams with that just slashing style where he'll smash you in the mouth, and he can catch the ball, but he is a first round pick. And I think first round pick capital for these running backs in the NFL is becoming more rare as we talk. Really surprised he's suiting up. I'll kind of give you the stage here to Bulls, and you can talk about this.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I love Amari and Hampton now that he's no longer at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. He goes from my least favorite player to my favorite player. I literally just drafted him number 2 overall in a dynasty draft yesterday. I think he's going to have an awesome season, an awesome career. Very surprised he's playing, especially as I mentioned before about the offensive line question marks with Zion Johnson starting at center. And not, I mean, then you factor in Najee Harris's injury, him being questionable at best to start the season, considering he's not even practicing yet. Um, Maybe they give him a series just to get him some work. Maybe he gets 2 carries. I mean, who knows? I mean, there is a chance he plays a couple series. I'd be very surprised. And obviously, he's talented enough that if they do give him the entire first series, he could catch 2 passes and run in a touchdown, and you're going to want to
Yeah.
have him.
Yeah.
I do think just from reading around from the different, tout sites, watching some stuff on YouTube, I don't think the ownership's going to be quite that high. I hope I'm wrong. I hope people, play with their heart. But I think unfortunately the DFS community's gotten better, and kind of don't do that as much anymore. So I mean, he's somebody that, might come in only like 10% owned. So if you want to just take a bet on talent and say, hey, this guy's awesome, he's going to get 50 yards and a touchdown on the first drive, go for it. Take a shot. I'm probably not going to get there. I mean, playing as many lineups as I am, maybe I'd throw in a couple percent, but to me, I'd rather just save those bullets and go elsewhere and just pray that he doesn't get off to a good start.
Yeah.
Because to me, it just doesn't make sense to put him out in that situation. And not that I'm calling Jim Harbaugh a liar. If they go out there and Rocket Sanders looks good in warmups and everybody else is looking good in warmups, and next thing you know, you get to the first drive and you see Kamani Vidal run out on the field with Trey Lance, I'm not going to be surprised either.
Yeah, I wouldn't either.
And you don't see.
I have no Amari and Hampton right now.
Yeah.
Maybe if I make a couple more lineups, maybe I throw him in one. I just can't really bet. And it's not betting on the talent. I can't really bet on somebody that might only get a carry.
Yeah. And it
know.
could be a situation too where Jim Harbaugh, again, as a veteran head coach, wants to see his first round running back go into a game and prepare like he's playing,
Yeah.
and does everything up until literally they're about to go on the field. And even Hampton doesn't know until Harbaugh says, nope, just kidding. You're not playing.
So yeah. So like to get off this a little bit, because we just mentioned Najee Harris, right? About the eye. This is something that Muscles and I were kind of talking about. It just seems like this eye is worse than what they're really like putting out there. And you being
Yeah.
a Chargers fan and kind of maybe following certain people, from a standpoint of like the season, how worried are you about Najee Harris and this eye injury?
At this point, if we see him play, I think it's a bonus. I mean, I don't want to be doom and gloom, but I think it's certainly worse than they're obviously letting on.
Yeah.
And I'm no doctor. I don't know what different things that they can do to make things, but it certainly seems to be a sensitivity to light situation because the last probably 3 to 4 practices the Chargers have had, Harris has been at practice, but he's had very dark tinted glasses on every single time. So my guess is that that's the issue. And again, I don't know if that means that, they can make him a special visor that he can wear and maybe he can do something with it, or he's just, I don't know.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem, something that's likely. I think, they have a very deep running back room with people that can play. Um, you know, and Harbaugh has been pretty honest about it and saying that like, hey, I don't know when he's gonna be back.
Yeah.
Like there's no timetable at all.
And I didn't know if you had seen, and I'm sure if you seen it, everybody would have seen it, like any interviews. Like, we got to remember, this is
Mhm.
an explosion that hit his
Y-
eye. Like, this isn't
Yeah.
just a little eye injury. Like, this was an explosive because when I first heard about him, like, is it really that big of a deal? And then you kind of put yourself into his shoes and you're like, if a firework went off in my eye,
Yeah.
it's probably not just the eye, it's probably around the eye, it's probably more than just the eyeball. Uh,
Yeah. I
it's
mean,
pretty worrisome.
I think the fact that he hasn't come out or nobody's come out and said anything positive at
Yeah,
this point is viewed as a negative.
yeah,
I think, at first it was like, well, maybe they just want to do this or that, but now, I mean, now we're almost a month after the incident, and
and it
and we still have not heard from him. We still have not seen him without either an eye patch or dark sunglasses or anything like that on. So, I mean, it was kind of a joke at first, but at this point, does he have an eye? I
yeah,
mean, it does. I
yeah,
mean, is the eye gone? I mean, what's the situation? He can obviously see. I mean, he's not like he's out there with a cane, so it's
yeah,
not like he's legally blind. But I think there's a huge difference in not being legally blind and being able to play NFL football.
yeah. It's something special. Like I've heard Ray Garvin talk about this, and I agree with him 100%. It's not what you're telling me, it's what you're not telling me, right? Like
Exactly.
it's what you're not coming out and saying that, like, oh yeah, it's going to positive. We're just not hearing anything. So like, yeah, I'm very, very worried for Najee Harris, and it does suck because I am a Najee fan, coming out of Pittsburgh. I know he comes over to LA to you guys, but still hoping for a positive career for him. But pretty tough luck. I want to mention this other rookie running back, Rocket Sanders, who we don't know if he's going to play or not. He was somebody that I personally kind of liked the film. I was surprised that he wasn't drafted higher. I don't even know, was he drafted or was he a free agent? He might have been undrafted.
He was an undrafted free agent, somebody that as soon as the Chargers signed him, um, got a ton of buzz with the Chargers. Came in, looked good in rookie camp. Came in was doing everything that they kind of expected him to do. Talking to the beat writers and everything, he was basically the top priority of the undrafted free agents. Like he was the first guy they went out and approached and said, "Hey, what do we need to pay you to come play for us?" So they're obviously very high on him. Um, I've reached out to, a couple people that I know in the Chargers world. They seem confident that he's going to play tonight, which kind
Wow.
of surprises me because he just came back to practice. I believe on June, July 28th, so just a couple days ago, and was limited in that first practice. I believe he got a full practice in on Tuesday, in the final practice. Uh, but that's still really tight, for someone like
Mhm.
Harbaugh who normally is pretty cautious when it comes to these injuries. Um, but and add on to that the Chargers do have a deep running back room tonight. But they may want to just see what he's got for a couple series.
Yeah.
Um, I certainly would not expect him to get anywhere near what the Lions guys should get as far as touches wise
Yeah.
are concerned. Um, and a lot of people are talking about him. From a DFS standpoint, I mean, I get it. I get why he's popular. Um, he's a much more exciting name than playing Jarrett Patterson, for example.
Yeah.
Um, but I'd be pretty surprised if Sanders had more touches than Patterson in this game. Uh, just because I don't, again, coming back from injury, obviously it wasn't a major injury. I mean, Harbaugh, pretty much the way the Chargers do camp under Jim Harbaugh is it's very, very cautious. He talks about the glide effect all the time as far as ramping up to full intensity. Uh, So I mean, there's a chance that his injury wasn't even very serious. So I mean, he could be pretty close to full go as far as the injury is concerned. My issues now from a DFS standpoint are more from just the fact that they have so many bodies.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a tough play. I like the player. I mean, he's very athletic for his size. He's a bruiser. But yeah, if he's gonna be higher owned and coming off an injury, that's another guy that I like. I just don't see myself playing. You know, I'm kind of with you there. Did you like Rocket Sanders' muscles?
Yeah, I didn't mind him. I mean, I definitely thought he was going to get drafted.
I did too, especially when he ran that 40. I was like, damn, he's pretty quick. Like, kind of like the film. So
Yeah.
yeah, I was a little bit surprised about that as well. Another name you did mention, Jarrett Patterson. So like he's he's a smaller player. He went to Buffalo. He had a really big game at Buffalo. I think like a 7 touchdown game or something. He was with the Commanders for a little while. So a player that's been around the NFL and I think does have some talent, but definitely on a smaller end.
Yeah, absolutely. Not somebody that's going to wow you with talent. Not somebody that's like highly likely to bust off a 60, 70-yard run. He is a reliable pass catcher. Does do well out of the backfield. Uh, I think if you had to put a gun to my head and say who gets the most touches out of this Chargers backfield, he would probably be the guy I would pick. Now, if you told me he got the most Chargers touches out of the backfield and was like the third or fourth highest scoring player also out of the backfield, it wouldn't surprise me. Just because I'm not sure what they're going to do with those touches. I do like, again, like we mentioned, the Chargers passing the ball a little bit more than the Lions. So I do like the fact that he's able to catch the ball in the backfield, which Rocket Sanders can do as well. Really all of these running backs that they have, you
Yeah.
know, outside of, maybe Hassan Haskins are all
Yeah.
pretty good at catching the ball. Obviously Naheem Hines, who's I don't know how much he's going to play, but he's also very adept at catching the basketball. Wow, sorry, catching the football.
He could probably catch a basketball too.
He
He
probably
has
could
pretty
catch
good
a
hands.
basketball too. Yeah, no, he probably could catch a foot basketball too. But yeah, they're all really solid, and I think you
Mhm.
definitely, again, if you're playing MME, you're gonna want to get exposure to these guys because there's a good chance one of them gets in the end zone. Which one it is, I have no idea.
Right.
Because it could be on any drive. It could be, I mean, it could be a situation where Raheem Sanders has 5 carries for 40 yards in a drive, and he's exhausted because he's only been practicing for 2 days. And Jared Patterson comes in and scores a 2-yard touchdown.
I think
I
that's
mean,
where
that's the thing that makes me nervous about Sanders and his condition.
right. And I think that's where I'd probably go to like ownership. And but you don't have to always have the lowest owned players, but like if you have a couple guys you think so you have Trey Lance or somebody that's going to be higher owned, then maybe you shoot for the lower owned running back, right? Like maybe you just kind of go through out of them and you're like, hey, Mari and Hampton, I don't love it, but Raheem Sanders is going to be a little bit higher owned. Maybe I'll give a shot on Jarrett Patterson or Naheem Hines or another guy here, Kamani Vidal, who we'll mention real quick. I don't
Yeah.
know what his ownership's like either, but maybe kind of play it like that. And then if you are playing 20 lineups or how many ever you're playing, then you can kind of go off that and build around different types of ownership.
Yeah, I think Vidal, who you mentioned, and my bad, I didn't realize we hadn't gotten to him yet, was he's probably my favorite play of the group just because I think he balances the best combination of talent plus opportunity in this game. If anybody gets more touches than Patterson, it's probably going to be Vidal just because they want to see him out there. That being said, one thing with Kamani Vidal, and one of the reasons, you guys as a dynasty pod probably were excited for him last year, and he really didn't get to see a lot of opportunity, is because he struggled a ton in pass protection.
Yeah.
He was really, really bad. Gave us some pretty rough hits to Justin Herbert, which got him on the bench really quickly. So now he has, from reports, he has improved. But I would think, again, if we're looking at this not on Madden and we're looking at this from an actual NFL team that's trying to improve, I would think when Vidal's out on the field, you're going to see a lot more passing. I think, and you're going to see him in protection, which means maybe he's not going out on those routes and he's not catching the ball.
Yeah. Yeah, I did see some plays and I read some articles about him because he can catch the ball really well. I can't remember what week. I think it was towards the end, but he caught a really nice pass for a touchdown from Justin Herbert. Really
Yeah,
explosive type player. So yeah, I mean
yeah.
it'd be nice to see him on the field and try to get something going, especially if they're trying to find maybe this pass catching down, breather type back for Amari and Hampton.
Yeah, because they're gonna need a number two. That's the kind of, I think, under, I don't know if you want to call it reported, but kind of under talked about storyline in this game is really the number two running back for the Chargers. With if Najee Harris is not going to be there, is
Yeah.
it going to be Kamani Vidal? Is it going to be Naheem Hines? Is it going to be Hassan Haskins?
Yeah.
Who Haskins is another guy that, like, he's someone that's almost, I don't want to say guaranteed a roster spot, kind of like Craig Reynolds in the sense that he's a core four special teamers. I mean, they brought him over, to play special teams. That's what he does. He played with Jim Harbaugh at Michigan. Harbaugh's, loves him. He's one of his guys. So I don't know how much we see him tonight. To me, it doesn't make sense to get him a ton of work in the backfield. But if this is a competition for the number two spot, he's going to probably see a series or two.
Yep. Yep. Absolutely. I think that covers all the running backs. Did we mentioned Naheem Hines, right? Just a minute.
Yeah, in passing, I mean, I obviously love Naheem Hines. He's one of my favorite players. He's, had that boating incident a couple years ago after, just a memorable year with Buffalo after he had the two touchdown kickoff returns for touchdown after the DeMar Hamlin incident. Super electric player. All reports from camp is he's back to 100%. He looks great. He
Wow.
looks fast. That being said, kind of like with Rocket Sanders, where his conditioning at is I'm a little worried about. Just because he only got into camp a couple weeks ago, kind of similar to Jabari Small with Detroit. But he's someone that he gets out there. I could see him catching a few passes, see him scoring a touchdown. My
Yeah.
guess is he'll probably get a couple kick returns too, or
Yeah.
punt returns. I think, because that's another, thing that doesn't get talked about a lot is, you get guys like, Darius Davis, we'll talk about here in a minute, and the wide receivers, or a guy like Naheem Hines, they're going to have chances to score on kick returns and punt returns. You see those in preseason games sometimes because,
Yep.
maybe those punt returns, especially if it's in the second half, like where you're getting some of these guys that aren't necessarily used to playing special teams or aren't used to, where they're going, and a hole opens up and boom.
Right. Yeah, I thought that's what made a lot of sense there, bringing him in and maybe fighting for a special team spot, like you mentioned. We'll talk about Darius Davis as well. Uh, Maybe to compete with him for punt and kick returns, and obviously try to get in that backfield a little bit. But yeah, let's go ahead and talk to some wide receivers here. And the first one we'll talk about was a bit of a holdout. Finally got everything together. Trey Harris, and I really want Trey to get in the building here. Just for the simple fact, being a rookie, and just getting acclimated to the team. So it's nice that they finally got that deal done. There was a lot of second round picks. It wasn't just Trey Harris. He was the one that was technically a holdout because of this Hall of Fame game, but it was nice that some of these players are getting their money and getting on the field because we need that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Trey Harris, super talented kid out of Ole Miss, big guy, 6'4". He's like 220. So huge wide receiver. One interesting note is when the Chargers drafted Trey Harris, a lot of people just assumed he was going to take over the X receiver role, was going to come in, and then Mike Williams retired. Everyone was like, all right, it's Trey Harris time at the X receiver role. Trey Harris has not been playing the X for the Chargers.
Mm.
He's been playing the Z. All indications tonight he's going to play the Z. He's been running, a lot of those kind of routes. Um, just from a dynasty standpoint, seems very clear. Quentin Johnston, by the way, is the X and is going to be the X for this year. But for tonight, I think we see Trey Harris a couple series, maybe a little bit more than we see Omari on Hampton. But I wouldn't expect it a ton. Kind of like we'll talk about, the Chargers have a very deep wide receiver room. Roster spots locked up. I think they just want to get him a little bit of a few reps, get him used to it out there, and then they'll probably get him out pretty quickly. Um, we'll talk about. I'll just go ahead and, if it's okay with you guys, let's go ahead and mention batch him in with Keandre Lambert Smith as well.
Yeah, yeah,
Keandre Lambert Smith, the other wide receiver that's a rookie. Come in, has had an amazing camp. has made a ton of plays that are all over social media. Everyone's excited, think he's going to be the second coming. People are trying to compare him to Mike Williams. Uh, hold the horses on that just a little bit. Um, but I think sorry about that. My wife just walked in the
You're
room.
good. You're good.
But yeah, we're but I think if Keandre Lambert Smith is where people kind of think he is, he's not going to play that much tonight. I think he might see a little bit more time just to give him some more experience. Um, but again, I don't know, man. It's not worth the hype that I'm seeing on all over the other place, man. Everywhere I read, everything I've listened to this week is like their guy is Keandre Lambert Smith, man. He's the number one play. He's the hot name. If you're not playing a quarterback, kicker, or defense, he's the number one guy. So I'm really curious how much that ownership gets steamed. I mean, he could be looking at like 35% ownership,
Damn.
which to me is absolutely crazy. I mean, he's
Yeah.
certainly capable of, especially with Trey Lance as his quarterback. I mean, he's capable. I mean, if any, I would say of all the non-quarterbacks, he's definitely probably the most likely to completely just break the slate with like 100 yards and a touchdown. I think he
Mhm.
has that ability, but I think that's a very low percentage outcome, and it doesn't warrant the ownership.
Wow. Yeah, that's oh man. I have seen some stuff on X about him, like just some real nice down the field catches and stuff like that as well. But that's crazy. That's pretty high ownership. So, but I mean, if he does have the ability to break the slate, I think I will have to throw some in just
Yeah.
for the simple fact, like even if he's high owned. But again, that's just going to go to your roster builds and get different somewhere else. So
Yeah, again, like you said, I mean, I would certainly throw him in. Just be careful the way you're building those rosters. Because if you're playing him, you're going to want to play him with Trey Lance.
yeah,
Because if he's going to get there, Trey Lance is most certainly getting there. Because unless Lance gets hurt in the first drive of the game, I mean, Lambert Smith, even if he's out there for 3 or 4 drives, is only going to play with Lance.
right,
So that's going to be his guy. So and if Lance doesn't, if there's enough for KLS to get there, Lance is certainly going to get there as well. So you're
right,
going to want to make sure you play those, but maybe you get creative and you put Detroit's defense in there too,
yeah,
or that's the lineup where you fade both kickers
right,
or something like that. I mean,
yeah,
do something to get different because if you just go, KLS, Trey Lance, Hendon Hooker, you know, Chargers defense, a kicker, and one of the Detroit running backs, you're probably duped with, 100 people.
right, right. Well, I'm glad you mentioned him and like gonna be kind of one of these guys that's higher owned. So you kind of go where you want with that in your lineups. Let's talk a little bit about Darius Davis here. So he was a teammate of Quentin Johnson at TCU. Very fast, explosive, smaller type receiver, but again, very explosive. Could he break away? I think he's one of these guys that could be a move the chains type player that could end up possibly breaking a big one. You're going to see him probably on some punt and kick returns. At least we did throughout the season. I don't know if they'll do that in preseason. I think it'll probably be a split with him and Hines. It'd be my guess. So, kind of curious to what you think there.
Yeah, so Davis is another reason why I'm comfortable fading KLS is because I think they're going to be on the field a lot at the same time, or at least in the same period of the game. I think a lot of the big play stuff that people are talking about with KLS, Davis is just as likely to do it. Now Davis is not as developed as a pass catcher. One of the stats that gets tossed around a lot with him is he's never had more than 2 catches in a game. He's had some big catches, he's had some touchdowns, but he's never had more than 2 catches in a game. That being said, just because he's never done it before doesn't mean he can't do it tonight. And he's also someone that they almost every single time he's on the field, they try to find a way to give him a handoff or two. So I would expect at least 1 or 2 handoffs to him tonight. I think they're going to target him. One of the, from listening to Chargers people and reading stuff from the Chargers camp, one of the reasons they didn't rush to fill Mike Williams' spot is they really feel confident in Davis as a wide receiver this year.
Oh,
Another reason why they brought in Naheem Hines is if Davis does take a bigger role on as a wide receiver, they could split off some of that special teams work with Hines. So I think they want to get a good look at him tonight in the first half with Lance and see what he can do. So and again, I think he comes in third of the ownership, maybe of KLS.
Wow.
Maybe it's not that much of a gap. Maybe I'm over kind of looking into it, reading into it. But I mean, I would say at least it's half.
Wow. I like Darius Davis. I thought he's a good explosive player. Like I said, I think he could be a move the chains type guy, but with that breakaway speed, man, I'm in on that. And I mean, if you can get him at a lower, that much of a lower ownership or whatever it is, count me in. I got him in a couple lineups already before we even talked about him. So, and I like the special teams ability. How do you feel, Muss? Is there anybody here that's kind of sticking out to you? I mean, I know you did some scouting on Darius Davis as well. So
Yeah, this is like I said, I'm mostly leaning on D Bulls here. I like how he breaks down who's going to get used with who and the kind of the pecking order tonight.
right. I'm the same way. I mean, you're doing such a great job with all this. And again, guys, you're not in that Discord. I will post a link after the stream. Jump in the Discord. I mean, you can read these articles. They're amazing. I mean, we're basically going through the articles and breaking them down, and that way you can ask questions. Like, hit the comments, ask the questions. Definitely willing, to answer what we can do here. And let's talk about a guy that's been really disappointing in my eyes, and Brendan Rice. Like, this is the son of Jerry Rice. I thought he looked okay at the Senior Bowl, but whenever we scouted him through his USC days, really, really underwhelmed in my opinion. And I know he was a later pick, or was he almost undrafted? He was down there as well.
Yeah, I think he was a 7th round pick. It might have been late 6th round, but yeah, he was a later pick. He had some big issues last year learning the playbook. That was his biggest problem. There were multiple times in the preseason in which there were issues with him running the wrong routes. There was a notable play. I forget which week it was, but there was injuries and he got called up to the active roster and ran the wrong route, and Justin Herbert threw it and Herbert just lit into him, and he didn't play another snap the rest of the season after that. So that was his biggest issue, I think, last year. Um, he's had a full off season now. It's the same offense. All the coaches are the same. Hopefully he's gotten more comfortable in the offense. He did miss some time in camp, but he's been back. So it definitely seems like he should be good to go tonight as far as playing. I would expect them to get quite a bit of a look at him. Um, he's one of those frustrating players because he's probably gonna be on the field for half the game, probably. Maybe, I mean, I don't. It's hard to say more because the room is so deep. But I
Yeah.
mean, if when we get the snap report tomorrow, I'd be very surprised if he doesn't lead the wide receiver room in snaps tonight, just because a lot of the things we've talked about. Um, I want to say he led the team in targets last year in the preseason, and only had a couple catches. So it was like,
Yeah.
and some of that, a little bit of that was drops. Most of it again was running the wrong route, not being in the right spot. Some of it was not the best passes, because obviously last year's quarterback situation was pretty awful in the preseason. So Rice is definitely somebody I'm probably gonna be on a decent amount. I worry a little bit about his touchdown upside, but obviously anytime you have a wide receiver that's gonna play as much as he is on an offense that, again, we only have the 1 year sample size, but is probably going to throw the ball 55, 60% of the time tonight. I like it. And I think he's one of those guys that I think he'll play with both quarterbacks. So you're not necessarily tied down to just one or the other. And could be one of those guys that if you're going to try, if you're going to try to get sneaky, and you could play that lineup with both Lance and DJU. And then once you have, at that point, you're so unique, you could play the chalkiest 3 guys you want to finish out that lineup, and it's not going to
Yeah.
matter.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. Somebody that maybe they really want to try to make it work with him. Again, running the wrong routes and stuff. And maybe this is his last opportunity, and he's got to try to really make the best of it here. So, yeah, I like the call there. Do you think ownership, he's going to be pretty chalky then too?
I don't know. It does seem like a lot of people are talking about him as someone who's going to play a lot, but he's kind of one of those guys where it's like he's going to play a lot, but he's also really bad.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things that he may pop up in some optimizers, but you may see a lot of people that go in and adjust his projection down a little bit. Uh,
Hmm.
because there's so many of those guys and the defenses and quarterbacks and kickers are gonna be so popular, I don't think his ownership will be high enough to really matter that much.
Okay. Yeah, that's somebody I don't have any in right now. Maybe I will throw him in a lineup or something and kind of see what happens. Next guy, let's talk about real quick, Jalen Reagor. So is Jalen Reagor gonna play? Because I did see in the report he's missed some practices and kind of see what happens.
Yeah, I don't think we've gotten official confirmation yet. I haven't really checked anything since we started recording here today, but I he missed practice for a couple days and he came back for one practice and then he missed two practices after that. So that kind of indicates to me, and then the last two practices up into the game were practices he missed. So I would be pretty surprised if he played. He's a veteran. He's a guy that another guy Jim Harbaugh absolutely loves.
Yeah,
Unless he's hurt or some of these young guys just have spectacular preseasons, Rager's pretty much locked into a roster spot. So I'm not so sure how much he would have played anyways.
yeah.
Just because again, he's another guy that's a core four special teamer. He's going to be out there for all the special team stuff. He's super reliable. And he's one of Harbaugh's guys.
Yeah, again popping up on the injury report we like this, and it sucks because I think this is a game that he'd be really good because Rager's never really been like a route specialist. He just kind of wins on athleticism. Like he's kind of he did that at TCU. So again, if he went against some of these lower end guys, it would be nice. Like if he was going to get a decent amount of playing time. But yeah,
Yeah.
I currently have him in none for me. Uh, we got Des Fitzpatrick next on the list. So I'm kind of curious. He's a deep ball guy. How you feel about him?
Yeah. So I'll tag Des Fitzpatrick and Jalen Johnson kind of both into the same basket here. I mean, they should both see some run. Um, Towards the end of the first half, beginning of the second half. Um, Either one of those two guys I could see playing most of the second half. And if they're, any of these guys, whether it's Brendan Rice, whether it's Desmond Patrick, Jalen Johnson, a couple of the other guys we'll talk about here at the bottom that I really like. A lot of times in these games, it comes down to the hot hand. We saw it last year with Colin Johnson,
Mm-hmm.
who had the monster game. If it's whether it's Trey Lance or DJU, or on the Detroit guy inside any of those guys, you know, if they find that they just have the rhythm with that guy, they could pop for 4, 5, 6 catches. And that's kind of how I view Fitzpatrick and Johnson, is they're both Jags. I mean, they're just guys.
Yeah.
Neither one of them, I would, if you told me to project, I would say two catches, 18 yards. That's
Yeah.
probably, you know, the 80% likely outcome is going to be that stat line for both of them. Um, you know, Throughout the day, again, if they get hot, you get 5 for 60 and a touchdown, boom, you're golden. So, if you're playing MME, I think you definitely want to get some exposure to these guys. Playing 5 lineups, 10 lineups, maybe even 20. I'm not sure I would get there. I just don't really see the upside. Um, from either one of those guys. But again, these are guys that are going to come in 5% owned or lower.
Yeah. Yeah. And you just never know if they hit, like you said, with Colin Johnson. I remember that. I can't remember who we were on last year, and they ended up getting some playing time when Tank Dell went down. I cannot think of his name, but yeah, it ended up being Colin Johnson. So yeah, you
Yeah.
never know. We do have one more guy on this list that I know you're really excited about, and showing some videos and stuff, and he looks pretty damn good. So let's talk about him. Is it Dalvin Campbell? I don't know if I'm saying that right.
I'm not 100% sure, but I think it's Delvon Delvon Campbell. Again, could be wrong on that, but I'm pretty sure that's what I heard. Yeah, he's someone I'm super excited to see play in the second half. I think his game, he's another huge 6'4", 220-pound guy. Ran a 4.43 at his pro day. Super athletic, super talented. Was kind of buried behind some of the wide receivers at South Carolina for a little while. And then last year they had just really crappy quarterback situation, so he really wasn't able to emerge. Had some issues with drops and consistency at South Carolina, but the talent is certainly there. Um, Big play guy that can really go up and get it. Um, we'll pair that with DJ in the second half, somebody that has his own inconsistency issues, but his biggest strength is being able to launch the ball down the field, make a big play. My hot take, if you want to call it that, for the game is that we do see Davon Campbell get a touchdown in this game. I think he
Ooh.
scores in the second half. That's kind of my pick. That's the guy I've been on all week. Anyone that's been in the Discord has heard me talk about him over and over and over again.
And
I got
even
a little I got a little nervous. Anyone that watches or listens to any of the Locked On series across all the sports, it's an amazing podcast series. The Locked On Chargers guys have talked about Campbell on multiple podcasts now over the last week. How impressive he's been at camp. Daniel Popper's mentioned him in a couple of his articles on how impressive he's been at camp. So he's a guy that has certainly been impressive at camp. That doesn't always translate over to the games in the preseason. Um, but when you compare it to some of these other guys that are getting a lot more attention, KLS is the perfect example. KLS is getting, obviously has played more and played with the starters and all that kind of stuff. But Campbell, as far as what I've been reading on a daily basis, is pretty much, obviously not playing as well and he doesn't get the attention. But if you would have told me which one's more likely to score a touchdown, I'd say the odds should be about even.
yeah,
And Campbell might come in 2% owned, and even if you say KLS is only 25% owned, I mean, I could play 20% Campbell and I'm like 10x the field,
yeah,
whereas 20% of KLS might be under the field. So it's like, those are the guys that I really love in this game. And you know the guy that's not even in my article, because I just found out about him, that we'll talk about in a second. He might come in at 0% owned, but those are just the guys that, if you're playing a lot of lineups, have some fun with some lineups too, man. Because you're at the end of the night, it's the fourth quarter, and you're some guy that you have 2% of hits a 50-yard touchdown, and you're freaking going nuts at 11:30 at night. Whether you're at home or you're at the bar or whatever you are, and everyone's like, why are you so excited? It's like,
never
fucking
even heard
Devon Campbell.
right.
Who?
I told you about him. Yeah,
So
so you've been hyping him up so much that I even put him in a captain spot.
there you
So
go.
There we go.
I'm about it, man. Seeing
Yeah.
some of the highlights and stuff, like I'm definitely about it. I think it's a good pairing with either quarterback. Was that the one where Trey Lance? Was that him? The one where Trey Lance had the wobbler and he
Yeah.
jumped up
the
and
duck, the
beautiful.
the duck herd around the world.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
No.
Not a great throw, but I mean, he
What?
went
But
and
it
made a
shows
play.
the ability to go up and get it, though. It wasn't a
Yeah.
good throw,
Oh,
and
dude, he
and
went
that
right
was
back to it.
what's his name? Dante Jackson was the corner that he did that over, who's projected to be one of the Chargers starting outside corners, who was
Yep.
covering him on that play. So that's the kind of talent that this kid has. Is it was he goes up and goes over top of NFL starting quarterback. I mean, a starting cornerback. Despite a bad underthrown ball, and makes the
Yep.
play. So that's the kind of guy that I'm looking for to kind of target in this game, and that's why I love him, because again, you play someone like Campbell, um, in your lineup, you can get as chalky as you want with the rest of your lineup.
Yeah.
Especially if you do it in captain spot. I mean, you could go captain Campbell. If you're going to captain him, I would say you're definitely probably wanting to play him with DJU. But again, you could still put Trey Lance in that lineup. You could put Hendon Hooker in that lineup. You could put Detroit's defense, Chargers defense, kickers, whatever you want to do with the rest of that lineup. It's not going to matter.
Right. Right. That's it. Now, is there another guy that you said was not on the article? Is there anybody else you want to talk about, or are they a tight
Yeah.
end?
Yeah, let me pull him up real quick. While I'm looking at another guy, just to keep an eye out if anyone's watching, is McAllen Castles is a tight end. He's almost certainly not going to play. He hasn't been practicing for the last week, but he is in the DK player pool. Before we touch on Aronde Gatson, who will be the last big name that we talk about at tight end, let's talk real quick about, I just lost his name, Jaquay Jackson. So Jaquay Jackson is a basically guy that's kind of just recently got signed. I mean, he's a camp body. He's not extremely exciting. Is pretty athletic from what it looks like. Just reading the little bit that I've read about him a little bit. Was a late add to the DraftKings player pool. So I know, like I said, I use, you know, roto grinders for my lineup builder. I had to reach out to their guy, Christian over there. Basically, hey, can you add this guy to the player pool? I mean, they didn't even have him in their player pool, like for
Oh
their
wow.
lineup builder. So, I
Mhm.
mean, like when I say this guy's going to be probably 0.2% owned, I believe it's going to happen.
You
Wow.
should
Now,
have never reached out.
yeah, right. Well, the problem is when you're building 200 lineups,
I know, I
I
know.
can't do that by hand.
Right.
But the thing is nobody's gonna. I mean, nobody's gonna play this guy. And again, he may not see the field. Who knows? He may only play a series. He may play the entire fourth quarter, and not see a target. Who knows? But if he does catch a 40, 50-yard touchdown, and you're one of five people that have him in whether it's the $15 or the mini max or something like that, that's the kind of GPP winning play that you can have, like that you can make.
Yeah. Well, and I think that might tell us a little more about Rager probably not playing. We've seen Grimm's out, so like there's a couple injuries that are there, and maybe he's going to be that rotational guy. And you never know, somebody
Mm.
else might get hurt. Like if there is some weather
Yeah.
and somebody rolls an ankle, he gets on the field. He's less than 1% owned. I mean, he's somebody that I got to have at least a lineup. Even if I'm playing 10 lineups, I'm gonna probably throw him in one just to see. Like,
Yeah, I mean, we,
get
we see
hurt.
all the time, and anyone that's ever played preseason DFS for NFL, like there's somebody that scores every game in the preseason that you're like, who the is that?
Yeah,
You
right.
know, and like,
Yep.
and
All the time,
it's
dude. All the
gotta it
time.
happens.
It
So
does.
we're real quick before we end up on the in with the Chargers players is let's touch on Aronde Gatson, tight end out of Syracuse. Kind of mentioned a little bit earlier when I talked about Meeks. Has another guy that's had a great camp. He's really interesting on this slate because there's a lot of questions on just how much he'll play. Um, Most likely, we're not going to see Tyler Conklin. We're not going to see Will Disley. Those are the two veteran, well-known Chargers tight ends. Um, Gatson, who was a fifth-round draft pick, almost certainly going to make the team. So he's somebody that's going to be on the roster. But they only have two tight ends behind him, both of which are strictly blocking tight ends slash fullbacks. So I can see a scenario in which Gatson's out there for like three quarters in this game.
Ooh.
And he's somebody that, while I normally don't like to play tight ends, I mean, he's a guy that, you watched him play at Syracuse. He was basically a wide receiver. He's been working on blocking a lot. That's been the biggest focus for him in camp. So I mean, there is a good chance that while he's out there, there will be plays he's just blocking. They just keep him on the line as an extra blocker, which again is just, I think, a bonus for the rest of the pass catchers because in theory, you have an extra guy blocking that should help the quarterback.
Hmm.
But if he gets, I mean, even if he gets two quarters, I think he's somebody you're going to want at least a little bit of exposure to, because I think he's, if you're just looking in terms of pure talent from the pass catchers, he's probably going to be like probably the third best guy, behind KLS and Trey Harris, as far
Yeah.
as that's going to be out there for the Chargers. And he's again a bigger guy. He's definitely someone that they're going to look to target in the red zone, someone that's capable of catching a touchdown. So I think he's certainly somebody you want on your radar. And it wouldn't surprise me at all if he pops for a good game tonight. And I will add one more piece of narrative that I keep trying to not tell myself is going to happen, but Antonio Gates is the Hall of Famer that's going in for the Chargers. So I
Ah,
would not put it past Jim Harbaugh to say, "Hey, let's go get the tight end to touchdown."
Yep. I like that.
Right?
I
yeah,
like that.
yeah.
Rondé Gatson was really nice at Syracuse. He fit that offense really well. He is like a pass catching type guy. Father was a Rondé Gatson senior, who was a wide receiver for the Miami Dolphins. Younger people might not know that, but it's a nice player there. So does have a little bit of that bloodline. There's a lot of bloodline in there this year. We have Mason Taylor. That was another Dolphins type
Yeah,
connection, right? With Jason
it's
Taylor and Zach Thomas.
That's because we're getting old and we've heard of these guys now.
No, I know it's horrible. That's why I almost put on a hat. I'm starting to lose a little bit of hair right here, but
Yeah,
it's all
that's
good, man. That's why we can't play football anymore. That's why we just talk shit on these guys or say how good they are, how bad they are. So kind of
exactly.
something that we do. But before we get to the next guys, I didn't even mention our sponsor. It's Fast Draft. So if you are into DFS, you're into best ball or anything, go over to the Fast Draft app, guys. Use that promo code POWER. They will match you up to $50 if you're a first-time depositor. And they have great ADP over there. Like if you go, and I'm not comparing it to others like, Underdog and stuff. They're all great places. I do consider this ADP to be a bit soft. Like I'm getting a lot of guys that I really like throughout each round. Like there are some sharp minds in there. They will take players from you, but go over, check it out, get in there, even try a couple mock drafts, see how you feel. I know Muscles, he just got on there. He really enjoys it. And, they do have rookie only drafts. So if you're like, yeah, Rondé Gatson, yeah, Trey Harris, Samarian Hampton, of course, this is a whole different thing for tonight. But if you believe them throughout the season, get on that Fast Draft app, go to the Origins tournament. And again, use that promo code POWER. So let's get into any more. Is there any more tight ends? We just talking Gatson here, or is that kind of finished?
Yeah, that pretty much will finish. I mean, they have a couple other guys,
Blockers.
that are playing. Yeah, you got Jordan Pataya and that. Yeah, they're blockers. They're not gonna. The Pataya guy is gonna be. You're gonna hear his name on the broadcast. I guarantee it. It's Jordan Pataya. He is a former rugby star in Australia.
Mm,
Super, guy that kind of got some talk around, the draft time and everything like that. He's, I mean, I'm sure they might give him a carry or try to give him a dump off or something just to, let him run with the ball in his hands. But he's not, I mean, this is his first time ever playing organized American football. I would be absolutely shocked if he was any relevant at all. And probably someone they're going to stash on the practice squad.
there was another rugby guy. Remember, he was with the Chiefs for a little bit. They had him returning, like Van
yeah.
Zan or something like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
something. Yeah.
It's kind of cool to see these guys like come over here. But yeah, that's somebody I'm just not excited on either.
Yeah.
We want to talk defenses and kind of combine them. We kind of mentioned that
Yeah.
earlier. So
Yeah, I think you have to, and I'm sure anyone watching this that has checked out any other touting sites or anything about the DFS is like, how are you guys not talking about defenses? Because you're going to hear everywhere you see defenses play all four quarters, which is absolutely true. I mean, I'm not trying to reinvent the wheel here. I mean, there's a very good likely outcome that at least one defense is going to be in the winning lineup. Um, no, I wouldn't say probably not likely both are, but it's certainly possible. I
yeah,
would give the edge to defenses over kickers for sure. I think because the difference between defenses and kickers is I think you have a little bit more ceiling for defenses just because you have that touchdown ability. You typically see a lot more sacks, a lot more, interceptions, fumbles, whatnot in the preseason. And you get, you add on that, a lot of times you see a lot of teams giving up somewhere in that 10 to 20 point range is the points you give up. So you're probably looking at 4 points from that, maybe one. But if you get three turnovers and four sacks, you're right there at that like 10, 11 point threshold that really puts you right there close to that, winning lineup. You throw in a touchdown, and now all of a sudden you're looking at someone you're probably going to want in your captain spot. Um, I think that for me on this slate, I think I mean, it's always going to be a little bit of a coin flip, but I definitely give a strong edge to Detroit
yeah,
defense over the Chargers defense for a couple reasons. The main being that, again, just looking at the data from the way these two teams play, Detroit typically runs the ball more. The Chargers have typically thrown the ball more. And I want the defense that's going to be going against the team that's throwing the ball more. You get more sack opportunities, you get more interception opportunities, things can happen. Um, all of that is concerned, not to mention the Trey Lance factor,
yep,
obviously is there. And then the backup is DJU, who, as talented as he may be, there's a reason he was undrafted. There's a reason he was so bad in college. Certainly prone to take sacks, prone to turning the ball over. You compare that to, I would say Hooker and Lance are pretty comparable from their impact on a defense.
Mhm.
But when you compare Kyle Allen to DJU, I think there's a significant advantage for Detroit's defense when you compare those two quarterbacks.
I think also bringing in, like you mentioned, the Zion Johnson stuff, a
Yep,
guard that's
exactly.
going to center, and it's been under talked about. So again, there could be fumble miscommunications. I mean, is it on two? Is it on one? And he snaps a ball or snaps it over his head. Like very easy points that you can get out of that kind of stuff. Or even, they put them in there and they blow up multiple run plays, and then they kind of freak out and lose momentum. So
Yeah, 100%. I think it's, and I think we'll see ownership probably reflect that. I think you'll see Detroit will be the higher owned of the two. Um, but I don't think it'll be significant enough, that you're like, oh, I'm going to fade Detroit because of the ownership,
yeah,
versus, or let me go overweight on the Chargers and underweight on Detroit because of ownership. I think it's going to be pretty close to each other. You might see something where it's like 35% Detroit, 25% Chargers or something like that.
right. Right. Yeah, I definitely get that. I was that's where I was leaning a lot. Like you said, the Zion Johnson stuff going kind of like untalked about, I think is really important as well. Do you kind of want to talk about like get into a little bit of like past optimal stuff, like optimal different things, cash game type stuff, just anything that you kind of want to touch on or break down to help all the listeners here, build some lineups.
Yeah, absolutely. For sure. So, when you're looking, kind of at the past optimals, what the winning lineups again, obviously the winning lineups probably not going to be the exact optimal.
Mhm.
But we'll be pretty close to it just because typically you have lower scoring games, you have lower fantasy outputs. The over under sitting at 32 and a half. Pretty much stayed steady most of this week. The last three games have gone to the over. Which is an interesting little twist. Even last year, that was cut short. I think still hit the over um, with I think a quarter and a half that wasn't played. Um, whether that is directly related to the fact that there's one less preseason game every year. So, you know, before you had five preseason games for these teams that were, playing in the Hall of Fame game. So it was pretty much really bottom of the barrel, vanilla, even more vanilla than it is now. Whereas now I think teams taking it slightly more seriously with, one less game on the schedule. Or it could just be in any stretch of 100 or 1,000, you know, simulations of anything, you have three in a row that could all have a certain outcome.
Mhm.
So I don't think just because the last three games all went over, it makes this game any more likely to go over, than before. I personally would lean a little more towards the over, but that's more just because of the plays that we have and the
Yeah.
players that we have playing. Um, you know, like I kind of mentioned before, you're looking probably in that like 8 to 10 point range from your players. Um, really to be optimal, for a winning lineup. I mean, you see winning lineups all the time, with guys like 5, 6 points in the lineup, and then just the big thing is going to be hitting that captain play. Getting that captain play that gets a touchdown. I mean, you're almost certainly going to need a touchdown out of your captain tonight. Unless literally all the touchdowns go to nobodies, which has happened before. But most likely you're going to need that touchdown from your captain. Most of the time we've seen wide receivers in that captain spot. Defense has actually been pretty high up on in the captain spot as well. Um, and then, some running backs, some quarterbacks. Um, Kickers were the one that I was surprised. You just don't see many kickers showing up in the optimal lineups. We'll talk about cash here in a second. I love kickers for cash, but they just, again, they don't have that upside. You're not seeing, you know, I think we all have these ideas in our head from the regular season where you get these kickers that kick 3, 4, 5 field goals in a game, and kind of like some of the stuff we talked about earlier, you're just really not going to see that in the preseason. Whether it's planning out things for plays or whatever the situation is, you just looking at the numbers, you just don't see that very often. So that's kind of where there is. Wide receivers again, and tight ends have really the highest upside. Most lineups that you've seen towards the winning lineups have at least two of them in their lineup.
Right.
You're going to want those guys just because. especially on DraftKings where you have the full point PPR. Those catches are so valuable. The running backs you do see pop up are those pass catching running backs. Very rarely does a running back get there because they have 12 carries for 70 yards and a touchdown.
Yep.
You're more likely going to see 8 carries for 35 yards, a touchdown, but then you also have 3 catches for 25 yards.
Big reason why we were on Felton last year, former wide receiver. And I mean, I
Yep.
think it really would have worked if he would have, the game would have
Yeah.
continued as we talked
Yeah.
about.
Yeah, we were in great position last year to
Yeah.
crush if that game went all the way.
Yeah.
Not that I'm still tilted over that or anything like that.
I was just taking a peek at the weather as you were talking to, and it looks like we got pretty clear weather here in Canton. So good
That's
news.
good.
There could be a little showers here and there, but that's nothing
Yeah.
these guys can't handle. We just didn't really want a slick, wet field. Then, that kind of gives me like the defense. Maybe you do play both defenses or something,
Yeah.
especially if we got a wet ball or anything. But we're looking pretty good for weather as well.
Yeah, that definitely helps the big playability, I would say for sure.
Absolutely.
When you're looking at targeting those guys. So and then just to touch on cash just a little bit, because I certainly think there's going to be a lot of duplicated cash lineups, but I think you could still kind of get a little bit of an edge because there's still going to be people that are playing, negative lineups, that'll throw in some guys that just shouldn't be in there.
Yeah.
The way I look at this pretty much slate, pending obviously the Detroit news on the running backs, I think there's really only 9 guys you're really going to want to play. And you're just going to pick your 6 favorite kind of out of that. You're looking the 2 quarterbacks, the 2 defenses, the 2 kickers, or I should say the 2 quarterbacks being Hendon Hooker and um, Trey Lance. And then I would also throw Kyle Allen in that as well, just because I think there's a much clearer picture of those guys going half and half.
Mhm.
So splitting that versus, with Trey Lance at least being told that he's going to start the third quarter, there's not as much of a floor with DJU. If you want to just play all 4 quarterbacks. I don't think it's the worst idea. I personally wouldn't do it. I
Yeah.
think DJU is mainly going to be someone you're going to want to target in tournaments. Um, and then, so it really would be those 7, and then the 2 Detroit running backs we've kind of talked about, Sailors and Small.
Yeah.
I personally would lean Sailors over Small, just because I think he's the better pass catcher of the 2. But again, I don't think you can really go wrong with either one of those guys, especially if, Robichaux's out, if, Baki's out, Reynolds. We'll find out how much, he's going to play. I mean, if a report comes out that, hey, Craig Reynolds is playing the entire first half, then obviously he becomes in play as well.
Right.
I would be extremely shocked if that happened, though.
I would be too. Yeah, I think you did a tremendous job breaking that down as well. And again, I'll throw this link in here. And I want to make sure that we give credit where credit is due. The Bulls, you've done an amazing job here. Like I said, these articles honestly should be behind a paywall. And we just thank you for sharing this information, and coming on and doing this. Like I said, this is year 2 that we've done this. We did the Houston game last year. We had a tremendous time. Houston, it was Chicago and Houston, I believe. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and then
Yeah.
it's even more special because you're a Chargers fan to see your Chargers come out and take the field. And, then you really break it down because you're kind of behind that information that not a lot of us might see. And that's how we can find the Campbells and stuff like that. So,
Yeah, no, it's been a pleasure, man. I absolutely love doing this. I mean, to me, preseason, I've said it before, in the Discord and other places. I mean, I think preseason is still that opportunity that you really have to kind of get ahead of a lot of these big time, optimizers and sims and everything like that, just because it's not as simple as just saying, hey, this is, you know, these are what these players do. These are the stats. These are the tendencies and everything like that, because it does change. There's
Yeah.
so much variance and there's so much unknowns with what's going on that you really kind of got to dig in and do the research. And I think there's still that, while it's not as much edge as it might have been 5, 6 years ago, I think there's definitely still an edge to be had.
Yeah.
And I really hope that, someone listening, someone reading, one of us three, walks out of here, $50,000 richer,
Oh,
by
that'd
the
be
end of the
great.
night. I mean, or even if it's,
Yeah.
even if it's just doubling up your cash games, or it's,
Yeah.
making, 2x and 3x and 5x and whatever it is, man. Let's Let's go out. Let's have some fun. Let's enjoy the fact that, football's going to be back on TV in 2 hours.
Let's
I'm
go.
super excited.
Ugh.
Like, let's go, man.
I
Like,
know.
this got me fired up.
It's got me fired up too, man. And again, we appreciate it so much. Mus, is there anything you want to say before we head out of here?
Yeah, man, let's do it. I mean, you wrote some great articles. Obviously we know you're great at the NASCAR stuff too. So
Yeah.
gotta shout that out. But
Yeah, always
Yeah,
gotta
yeah.
shout it out,
yeah,
Pour one
but
out for Sterling while we're here,
yeah, pull it up early, but yeah, no, it was a good episode. I learned a lot. Hopefully somebody takes something from it.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And I'll be around. I mean, as soon as we get off here, I'll be start building lineups, and I'll be around the Discord tonight. If anyone wants to hop in, ask some questions, just let me know, tag me, pin me, whatever you guys need to do.
Awesome. Well,
will
we
do.
appreciate it so much. And, year 2 of the Fantasy Football
man.
Power Hour DFS breakdown for the Hall of Fame game, guys. Had a lot of people in and out. Thank you guys so much. Please go over to YouTube, like, subscribe. We did make a TikTok. I've been posting some TikToks on there as well. And I will post that Discord link as soon as we're off here. Chris, thank you again. And make sure to follow him at the Bulls Fan. He would really appreciate that. Follow Muscles. You can follow me at FFA Train. And we will see you guys on the next episode of the Fantasy Football Power Hour.
See ya.
See ya.
Hey,
Yo, welcome to the Power Hour.